guys want a shot at winning a copy of Call of Duty World War II for the console of your choice for absolutely free, a couple of my friends and I are doing a little giveaway. Link is down there in the description below. Go check it out if you're interested. As we draw nearer and nearer to Call of Duty World War II's official launch this November 3rd, I'm getting more excited by the second, and of course, I'm starting to take a look at all the things that I'm gonna have at my disposal within the first couple of hours to jump right in, get right into the swing of things, and all things considered like that. So, that said, I wanna touch on something that's, I'm wondering if it's going to be how we think it is, how these recent leaks are portraying the system itself, and that dealing more so with the Division system, and something that I'm personally dubbing the 2.7% debacle, which we'll get to explaining that here in just a second. So we're gonna be talking a little bit about some stuff that was, yes, leaked from the data mined code from the PC beta, but we're gonna put it in a sense that if you guys are not necessarily into leaks, that's totally cool. We're gonna be discussing it as a general ideology and at a certain bird's eye view for it. We're not gonna be taking a look at anything specific save for a number of things that were leaked. And I'm not saying a number of things as in we're gonna be talking specifically about multiple, we're talking about one individual number that pertains to a certain amount. So what we're gonna be talking about in this one primarily is, will there be an issue with the Division system and more specifically with basic training? So for those of you guys that may be brand new to either the system itself, you haven't played the beta or don't really have any information on it, the Division system is a brand new way that was brought up and proposed by Sledgehammer for Call of Duty World War II specifically. Previously, we've had the PIC-10 system, the PIC-13 system in Advanced Warfare, and essentially it was something that we've come to know and love for years now. It became almost commonplace with every single title to have a create-a class system like a PIC-10 system that allowed us to either stack up on weaponry, stack up on perks, or do a little bit of both here and there, along with your lethals and tacticals. So that became commonplace, and to just shake up how everything really works out, Sledgehammer decided, let's not do that. Which, actually, fun fact, there was, at the core code of the game, actually stuff that was there for regular perks, regular create a class systems, and kind of alluded towards, once again, that PIC-10, PIC-13 system that we've seen in the past. Whether or not that was something that was only there because of, say, leftover code from Advanced Warfare, taking the core engine mechanics of that and some things that were allocated there with it and then burying it deep within the code, we don't know, or it's quite possible that some of this was brand new, because of some of the stuff that was data mined, there actually were brand new perk icons. So who knows, but nonetheless, what we have now is the Division system, which will inherently replace this system of the PIC-10 and the PIC-13 by giving us one of 5 options starting at the top and then going down, almost as if a hierarchy of how things can work. So you first have your divisions, that being infantry, airborne, armored, mountain, and expeditionary. Then from there, you can choose whatever weapons you want, sidearm, lethal, tactical, and then it comes down to what your basic training will be. And this is where it really shakes up a lot of how we know Call of Duty thus far, and in, of course, recent years. Previously, we had 3 perk tiers, simply being known by tier 1, 2, and 3, in which there were 6 different options for perks that you could have for a total of 18. You'd come out with a combination of up to 6 of 18 perks for each class setup. So that's something that you had a ton of creative freedom here at this one. You could really tailor and build essentially a super soldier, if you want to put it that way, depending on how you want to look at it. Some perks were definitely a lot better than others and gave players an advantage over somebody, say in a gunfight, or if you have 6 perks, a bare weapon fight or a knife fight perhaps, but nonetheless, it was something that gave a lot more chances to have a better ability going into a gunfight. Some things were definitely crutch perks, and in previous, we've seen things like flinch, which really was a huge part of that. We haven't seen it in recent years, but nonetheless, there was still that ideology that perks really helped you build a more stable base within your soldier. But this is where it gets to be very different within World War II, because you can only choose one basic training per division class setup. So with that said, this is where it gets to be very interesting when we take a look at some of these leaks that came out, because as mentioned, I'm not going to go into any detail for each of the specific division basic trainings, but if we take a look at them from the top down, everything that is detailed here, assuming that these are all going to be in the playable game, which some of them may not be, some may still be withheld, we don't know, but what was listed was 37 basic trainings. So if you take a look at that, with all different sorts of division abilities and skill sets there within each basic training, something that really tailors a playstyle and a meta of how you end up playing the game, with each one really tailoring to different specific portions of how people will play, 37 is a lot to choose from, and especially when you take a look that you can only do one. 1 out of 37 choices that you have here, which can really act as a deterrent in a sense to what a lot of people think of when they think about the created class system. It might upset them a lot because let's face it, a 33% completion towards that having every ability compared to a 2.7% completion of all abilities within World War II. That's a massive turnaround. Now again, without going into any detail on what these specific basic trainings are, some things are definitely going to be more viable and used than others. Of course, that's just how it always works. That's how it happened with the perk system as well too, but you're definitely gonna see a little bit more of a disconnect between some of these basic trainings and what everybody uses and what is considered meta in World War II and what isn't used at all. You're definitely gonna see that clear divide pretty much immediately, I think. There's definitely some things in there, if you take a look at them when they're detailed, that really could deal without being a basic training and taking up one of those slots, but again, it's there for whatever people want to use. So let's break this down into why it might be considered an issue and then why also it still might not be. So first and foremost, and probably one of the biggest, if the only thing here out of this, is that people want the creative freedom to be able to tailor their gameplay and their class setups to how they want to play. That's something that is, of course, totally understandable and, of course, is something that we've come to know for so long. So when it's taken away, it really creates this little disconnect on how things could work. But the counter to that is that it's not something that was taken away, just more so guided and put on rails from, say, perhaps just a devil's advocate perspective. Because when you take a look at it, you actually still kind of can stack things like you would be able to with multiple different perks instead of just taking one basic training. Because if you take a look at the division training and the division skill sets, there's actually a lot of overlap for what we see in basic training. Once again, without going into detail for all these and everything like that, if you take a look at the 37 basic training and then match them up with each of the division skill sets, there is at least one division granted perk that has a coinciding basic training per division. Some even have more, upwards of, I think I saw 3 in one. But nonetheless, theoretically though, there is always going to be a way and possibility to stack, just with not as much creative freedom as we've known previously. But here's why. It was to focus on the core gameplay mechanics themselves. When you take out these different customization options in terms of what you can create for a super soldier, once again, if you want to put it that way, it really starts to focus on the core gameplay itself. When everybody's brought down to the same level, the movement, the gun skill, though that will be always something that's debated in COD, of course, and other factors that go into just these simple one-on-one engagements, it's there so that it gives the players the ability to have a level playing field, an even fight if you want to put it that way. The more that you add on customization like perks, and I'm gonna take Flinch for example because that was probably one of the most crutch perks of the last few games, in which when we saw it there, it was definitely always used by everyone. If somebody didn't have something like Flinch, then they would always end up having their aim skyrocket in a 1v1 gunfight, and therefore probably a lot of the times lose that gunfight. So unless you had pristine accuracy, somehow did not take any shots from your enemy, and other things considered, you'd probably end up losing the gunfight to somebody that did have Flinch. So when you take a look at that in that aspect, taking these perks out and not allowing as much stacking to happen, it brings it down to an even playing field. And while that is debatable for some people, some may agree with it, some may incredibly disagree with it, that is what I believe the core focus of this in terms of the developmental standpoint, the design of it, why they did it. Now the thing that's really curious to me though and really interesting is that E3 was actually a lot different. This is something that not many people got to experience and not many people really got to take a look at, because even people like me, the YouTubers that went out there to capture footage, the sole reason for going out there, we couldn't show the menu information or anything like that. But trust me when I tell you that what I can say about this, I can't show it once again, is that there were actually different ways that these basic trainings were put together at E3 compared to the beta and now what looks like is going to be in the full game. What's weird about it is that E3 actually had different basic training abilities, had up to 3 skills and different attributes in each individual basic training. So kind of compressing those 37 basic trainings into what was presumably going to be a little bit less. But now when we take a look at it, we see at most 2 skills per 1 basic training. And even if we see 2 in 1, chances are those 2 abilities in that 1 basic training are more so diluted or watered down compared to some of the other basic training abilities abilities there within. So it's weird to take a look back and see that it's kind of progressed to stretching that out even further. And once again, I think it just really all comes back to trying to limit how much of an unfair advantage somebody may have in a class setup, and that therefore a theoretical skill gap wouldn't be fabricated, but instead would come down to actually the ability of players to engage in those one-on-one gunfights. So I understand where it's coming from, but it's definitely weird to think about how it's progressed. But nonetheless, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. And I guess when we come down to it, we don't have much of a say in it at all because the system's locked in. We're getting it. It seems like 37 abilities will be making the cut. But of course, those could change. We could see less, we could see more. It was only data obtained from the PC beta, which we know was not the full version of World War II. So I guess we'll see in time, but nonetheless, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. So I'd love to hear your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. What do you think of this? Do you think that it's a weird change up and curveball that you're not necessarily in favor for in terms of the create a class system? Or do you like what was done with this here? Do you like how perks have been approached within World War II? Or what are your thoughts? Just let me know down there in the comment section down below. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully my little explanation of this made some sense and it's something that doesn't sound too crazy. That said, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and if you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe to stay up to date with everything we have here regarding Call of Duty World War II. We're getting oh so close, but still feels like these next couple of days are gonna drag on so hard until the launch. But that said, if you guys are interested in any of the content we put out, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a beat. And finally, if you guys wanna follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys wanna strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. But all that said, out of the way, hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.